All right, so it looks like everybody is pretty much back, and I've been following along as people have been um, posting their recordings to the forum. So before we move away from this and sort of wrap up this topic, just thoughts, reflections. Did it work for you? Did you have issues following any of the instructions or following the assignment itself? What did you think of the results that you got when you were done? Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Think there was a definite noticeable difference in between recordings, recording one and two, and I wasn't sure you could do all that stuff to make your voice sound so much clearer, but it worked great.
Yeah, and that I mean that's the point of this, and maybe I'm focusing a little on audio more than some of the other things we've done, just because that's where a lot of my background is. But with each of the different media that we've been using, there are tricks like this. There are things that you can do that are not necessarily terribly technical. That oftentimes it's just a matter of being aware. Does anybody in the past? I've gotten some pretty interesting answers to this, but who thinks they ended up in maybe the most bizarre location in terms of actually making your recording the second time around?
I actually did go into my daughter's closet. I was sitting at the kitchen table doing my assignment, and the dishwasher was on. So you could hear the hum of the appliance in the background. So I went upstairs, and you could definitely hear a difference between the first one and the second one. The one thing I was wondering, did anybody notice when you listened to the second one? I almost felt like it made it sound like I was in a tunnel or something. I don't know.
Yeah. To answer that, oh, the dog and cats. Yes, animals are wonderful interrupters of videos and audios. Yeah, the tunnel effect. Again, you can keep digging down the rabbit hole on this. One of the problems that can happen when you get closer to a mic, particularly if that mic is attached to your computer, is that you might start picking up what's called a slapback echo, where your voice is reaching the microphone just microseconds apart from each other if it's bouncing off of the computer screen back to your face, back to the microphone. So sometimes that little tunneling effect is actually your voice sort of slightly out of phase with itself. Oh, yay, Sandy. All right, we got success there. Um, so sometimes it's just a matter of finding a good balance. Maybe talking louder and moving a little further away might help that out a little bit, or even not pointing your voice at the screen, but rather turning your voice to the side. Sometimes that can even make a difference. So sometimes it's just by trial and error. But yeah, for the most part, as I was going through, as I said, I tried to listen to each of them as they got uploaded. Um, there were many that had significant differences between the first and the second recordings, and for the better as well. So, any other thoughts, comments? Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, just to add, the monitoring feature where you can monitor if you're clipping or not, that really helped. I feel like in the second recording.
Yeah, and that's a whole thing in my recording technology class that I teach at my high school. We spend a couple of days on what's called gain structure, which is all about that setting the loudness of the microphone on the input and doing a bunch of other things. And it's one of the most key places in terms of getting a quality recording, where just a little change can make a huge difference, because you really want the voice to be as loud as it can be, um, without clipping, without distorting, to get the best quality out of the recording in the end.
Also, I didn't use the mic the second time, but who's counting?
Yeah.
That's fine, right?
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, just again, in terms of sticking things in your toolboxes to use down the road, in terms of, if somewhere in your Moodle or even in your own classes, you think there would be an opportunity to do a piece of audio instruction, then just keeping some of these tricks in mind can really make a big difference. The EQ one, by itself in these recordings sometimes actually can start to make the voice sound a little brittle. But where that becomes really effective is if you've got music at the same time as a voice. So if you're doing something where you've got a soundtrack in the background, if you do what you did with the voice here and bump that 2 to 5,000 hertz range a little bit, and then also go into your music track and drop that down. So basically take those frequencies lower in the music. That really does a lot to help make the voice stick out over the recording and helps your listener understand what the voice is saying. It's really kind of crazy. I've done experiments where I take out everything except for a very, very narrow range of frequencies. And it is amazing how that narrow band really does contain everything that we need in order to understand speech. You can get rid of the rest of it and it doesn't really matter. But if you get rid of that little narrow band, you really can't understand people anymore. So it's interesting. So, all right. Well, those are up there. I figured the forum was an easy way for you to get the files to me. If you're interested, of course, you could go around and take a listen to what some of the other students did. I think one of the most dramatic ones, I think Brian Hall's, yours, the difference between the first and the second one was very, very noticeable. And on a lot of them that sticks out right away. So. All right, so things to think of. A lot of the online software, a couple of the ones I'm going to show you, are not going to give you those effect tools that we were able to use in Audacity. A lot of times, if you're using one of the online resources, really all you can just do is record. However, the location and the microphone, being aware of the microphone and your relationship to the microphone, that can work no matter what software you're using. And as I said, Audacity is free. So there's really no reason, if you need to create something audio, not to just use Audacity, because it is going to give you those tools and allow you to do a little bit more with things. All right, so that'll sort of wrap up the Audacity piece of the evening. I wanted to just quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but as I've done with the other modes of instruction, I have posted a page that's got a few links to some online recording apps. But again, if you have Audacity, there's no reason you can't just use that. But for example, this first one, Anchor, is actually, it's really designed to be more of a podcast service. So it's, we don't need to listen to that. Stop. So, podcasts are one particular form of audio material. And what Anchor allows you to do is to record your podcast right in their software. But then they're also designed to host your podcast. So if you've got episodes, you can actually track those episodes and organize them, and you can publish them. And Anchor will actually take care of publishing your podcast to the iTunes podcasts and to some of the other online services. So it's more than just creating the audio. It does that. It allows you to record right in their software, but it also does a lot in terms of organizing and the content. By the way, just occurs to me, does anybody know what the pod of podcast stands for? No one? All right. Maybe look that up. Maybe for next class, I'll ask and see if anybody's has found. But POD actually stands for something. POD. It actually stands for 3 words. So if you get a chance, yeah, it actually it comes from actually 3 words. So if anyone gets a chance to look that up, maybe we'll share it the next time we're together. Um, that's close, Brian. It's actually very close. So we'll see what people come up with. All right, so a couple of other ones that I've just thrown in here. There's one that is literally just called onlinevoicerecorder.com. It's not a terribly creative name, but it is literally exactly what it says. When you go to the site, it's this. There's a little microphone icon. You push that and you just start recording. And this does allow you to do cropping. So the tool that we were using of trimming, it does allow you to do the cropping. It's not going to have some of the other tools. It does automatic silence trimming. So it will automatically see if there's silence at the beginning or the ending of your recording and get rid of that. But it's another one. It's completely free. There's no accounts or anything like that. So if you've got to do a quick recording and you don't have access to an app, you can use that. The other 2 I threw up here again are also about hosting your recordings online, and these are especially SpeakPipe, I think was the one I was looking at. This is one that's sort of designed to be more for people to be able to create audio and send it to you. So you've got ways that you can embed it into a website or into a Moodle, and when people click on it, they will be making a recording, but then that recording will be linked back to you. So if you have students that you want to read a passage, or you're a world language teacher and you need them to do an activity and then submit that audio to you, and you don't have another way to do it, this is a way that you can actually send voice messages by hosting. It hosts the audio recordings online. And the same thing, Clip is another one that was sort of very much in that same model, is that you can do your recordings here, or you can upload audio. So if you've made something in Audacity, you can actually upload it to Clip if you've got an account there, and then that allows you to link to it or embed it like you would embed a YouTube video, and so on. So if you're trying to get audio content into a website and you don't have a way of putting it on the page, you can also take care of that through a service like this. So, again, all of these things we've been looking at, from the graphic design to the video to the audio, there are more and more services that are trying to allow you to be able to do these things without needing special software or anything like that. I teach an entire electronic music class now that used to be based on a piece of software that we would have to buy licenses to and install. And as of this year, I've gone to an online app called Audio Tool that is free and has a lot of the same features. So my students can build entire songs with drums and keyboards and bass and recordings and instruments and all that, just right in a web interface. So without needing the special software. So it's definitely becoming more and more a piece of what we do. So, and that's actually a nice segue into just sort of a brief introduction or discussion of Web 2.0 and sort of what the next layer of this class is. I know we've been focused really hard on the Moodles and on the Moodle project. Sorry, I'm not sure why the page here is loading extremely slowly. There we go. Web 2.0, does somebody have a good explanation for Web 2.0? Like what does that mean when we say Web 2.0? How is that different from just the web? Any thoughts? All right. Well, the basically the idea behind Web 2.0, initially the internet, the web, was basically a one-way street that people would produce content, it would be put on a web page, and then people could go to that web page and they could view the content. But the information was all going towards the user. Web 2.0 is basically referring to sort of the second generation of the use of the web, where it's now become interactive. It's two-way. So the user isn't just consuming content. The users are now able to create content, and they'll be able to send content back to a website or interact with an app online. So the point of Web 2.0, the sort of idea behind it, is that refers to when the web became uh, interactive back and forth, two-way. It became a two-way street instead of a one-way street. So when we talk about Web 2.0 apps, when we talk about using Web 2.0 in instruction, really what we're saying is that we're looking for the tools online that allow not only the teacher to deliver content to the students, but for the students to interact with that content and oftentimes create their own content or send that content back to the teacher in a much more interactive way. So a lot of these websites that I've been showing you are essentially Web 2.0 because they allow you to create new content and post that content or share that content with others. So the way this ties into our other major project for this class is that in the last 3 weeks of class, each of you is going to be doing a 20 to 25 minute presentation on some piece of Web 2.0 that you have gotten to know and gotten to learn how to use. And maybe it's something that you already use in your classroom or use in your work. But the idea being that you are going to take on the role of the teacher and for 20 or 25 minutes are going to essentially present a lesson online synchronously with the rest of the class where you're going to introduce that app or that tool to the rest of the class. So there's sort of two parts to that. One part is finding an app that you are going to present. So to that end, I've started, and again, there's a ton of these online. So I just went on and I started looking at websites that collect all of these instructional Web 2.0 websites. So here on our Moodle page, I've put a Web 2.0 resources page. And these are just 4 websites that I came across that are all places that have gathered together a lot of links to a lot of different websites that host educational tools that you can use. And there are tons of other pages that do the same thing. So one of the things to start looking at over the next couple of weeks is if there's not something you use already that you might be interested in presenting, to maybe just start poking around a little bit. Think about what you teach. A lot of times you can find tools specific to a particular discipline or a particular approach. Or if you're not a teacher, there are certainly things that apply to all sorts of different jobs or tasks. So step one would be just to kind of look around and see what's out there. A lot of the tools are free for the most part. So I'm not looking for you to go out and spend a ton of money to to become a a power user of something, but if you can find some website like like a Powtoon or something like that that you find useful and would like to learn more about, and then would like to present to the rest of the class, that's going to be one part of that project. So I'll post more as I find them, but honestly, you can go on Google and say, list of Web 2.0 educational websites, and a lot of times those will you'll get a lot of lists back. So that's part one, and then part two is the Zoom part. For those of you who don't know, Zoom is essentially WebEx. It's another platform for doing online video-based collaboration and instruction. It has a lot of the same tools as WebEx. You can share your screen, you can share apps. It's got a whiteboard that you can draw on. You can do chat. You can even set up sidebar discussions. So it essentially is just another WebEx platform. But that is going to be the platform that you use for your presentation. The reason we're doing that is because the reason we use WebEx for the class is because that is a platform that Central owns and uses, but we don't have a way to set up students so that they can become the instructors. Melissa, yes, we are going to, what I would say for now is maybe come up with a couple. And when we come back from break, one of the first weeks back from break, we're going to do a forum post or something like that where people are going to share what they want to do. And if we see overlaps, then we can address those before people get too far. So anyway, so we use WebEx at Central because instructors have access to it, but we don't have an easy way to set up students as the instructors. The nice thing about Zoom is that, here's the phrase again, it's free. You don't need to pay for it. Anyone can sign up and use it. And it does offer most of the same tools that WebEx offers. So it'll give you a chance to experience what it's like to deliver a class to a computer. Free. Yes, we love free. To deliver a class through a computer to a group of students. So that's going to be the other piece of it. So those two elements, and this kind of brings us right up to the homework. So we do have 2 weeks. We do not meet next week because it is spring break. I know it's not spring break for most of us who teach in schools, but it is Central spring break. So we do not meet next week. So homework for next week, for 2 weeks, for week 8. Number one, we haven't done a blog post on our Wix websites in a few weeks. So I just want you to put up a blog entry now that you're somewhere in the middle, past halfway on your Moodle projects. I just want you to do a little reflection on what the process has been so far, what's worked for you, what's been a struggle for you, what challenges have you run into, sorts of things, just to give you a chance to, honestly, more for yourself, just kind of take a moment to regroup, see where you've come, and kind of reset where you're going to be going for the remainder of the time. So that'll be on your Wix. That's not going to be a forum. Number two, if you don't already have a Zoom account, I know a number of students do. I've heard several of you say that you've used it in other classes or that you just use it on your own. But if not, just sign up for a Zoom account. I've embedded the link right here to get to Zoom. And just find a time, and maybe, I'm not sure what the best way is to do this. I wasn't just going to divide people up, but find some time over the next 2 weeks for you to just try it out with somebody else. If it can be somebody else from the class, then that would be great, because then you can kind of go back and forth. If you don't have an easy way to get in touch with anybody from the class, then maybe you can just try it out with somebody at work or somebody that you teach with. I just want you to see what it's like to be on the other side of the interface in terms of using video conferencing. I gave you a link here to their help resources and tutorials. Zoom's got a ton of video tutorials about every aspect of using their software. So there's a lot of instructional stuff there to help you get started. So basically just begin to become familiar with Zoom. You've got several weeks before you're actually going to be presenting, but I want you to start at least getting familiar with the interface so that we can address any issues. And then, as I said, for your project, for the presentation project, just start checking out some of the Web 2.0 resource pages. If you can start developing a short list of things that you might want to use for your presentation. And then we'll be, like I said, we'll be sharing out those ideas to make sure that we don't have duplications or overlaps. But with the amount of stuff that's out there, unless it's one of the really popular sites like Kahoot, for the most part, I have a feeling we're not going to have a lot of overlap. There's so many resources out there to pick from. So just start thinking about that. It's nothing you have to tell me yet or post anywhere yet. Just for yourself, start thinking about what you might want to do. And then, as always, and for the next several weeks, just continue to work on your Moodle. Maybe use the need to be an app free to all. Thinking of no, it doesn't have to be. If it's something you have access to, as long as you can demonstrate it, that's going to be the key thing. Is just to let people see. I mean, I know Office 365. I know my district is a Microsoft district, so I know there are school districts that use Microsoft, and so doing something like out of Office 365 might be a good thing. And a lot of people, even if their schools don't use it, obviously pretty much everybody uses Word and Excel and those sorts of tools, so they're familiar with Microsoft as a platform. So, yeah, so just, with these next 2 weeks, this might be a really good time to really buckle down with the content of your Moodle and just get that as far along as possible. We basically have a month, I believe, until they're due. We have the next 2 weeks where during the spring break. Then we have 2 weeks after spring break where we're going to mainly be focused on assessment and getting the final pieces into the Moodle. Then the week after that is our beta test week where we will meet on campus and give a chance to have other people provide you feedback on your Moodle in person. And then they're due the week after that. So we're 4 or 5 weeks still out. But since we don't have class next week, it would be probably a good time to really just focus most of your energies on getting content created. Now that we've got audio, video, print, graphic media, we've gone through all of the different activities in Moodle. So you've really got a pretty complete library now of ways to deliver your content within your Moodles. Okay. So, yes, thank you, Sandy. April 9th. So, yeah, it is, just over a month. So, but that's still a fair amount of time. And seeing where most of you are right now, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. So just keep plugging away at it, and you will all be fine. All right. So any questions about the homework for 2 weeks from now? Final thoughts on this evening? All right. So thank you for working through the activity tonight. Hopefully, those of you that maybe were thinking of using the lesson activity now have a chance to sort of see how it works. And as always, be in touch with questions, concerns, problems with your Moodle. You do now have the dialogue on your Moodles, so you can use that as a way to contact me as well. And like I said, my hope is to give you another round of feedback before we meet next in 2 weeks, just to kind of check in halfway between now and when they're actually due. All right. So if nobody has anything else for the evening, I think we will call it there for tonight. Thank you for your time this evening, and just continue to be in touch if you have questions, concerns, or comments. All right. Enjoy your week off. Thank you.